All right, so welcome. This is our CIS 117 virtual web meeting #1. It's our Connectapalooza. And the Connectapalooza is intended to make sure that everybody is able to get connected, find the Canvas learning management system where we'll be holding our class and submitting our materials, and also to answer any questions or do any troubleshooting and demonstration of installing and configuring the SQL Server that we'll need this term. Now, there's going to be 3 ways that you can deal with SQL Server. One is, of course, you're welcome to schlep on down to Santa Barbara City College during the hours that the Business and Communications Building computer labs are open, and you're welcome to use the BC labs. They're all set up for you. That's not a real popular option for online classes, particularly since looks like our demographic is all over Southern California and sometimes the world. So that's probably the least practical and least popular, but it is an option. So a couple other things that we can do is we're using SQL Server Express because it's a fairly light footprint, but it is also a free download from Microsoft. So anyone can use that for free. And that is great if you happen to have a Windows computer on which you can install it. It is maybe less great if you're running a Mac or a Linux system or a Chromebook or something of that nature, or for whatever reason the computer that you're using to access the materials this term is not one that you are able to install software on. Okay, so there's yet a third option, and that is SBCC CIS department is an academic alliance partner with Amazon Web Services, and so you can apply for a free AWS student grant, and they usually process that within 24 to 48 hours, and it does not require a credit card or debit card or anything like that. You can get a $75 credit. If you do give them a credit card, I think they give you a $100 credit, but you don't have to give them anything. They'll give you a $75 credit, and we can run a Windows instance in the cloud, and $75 is, you could run it for a year, let alone the 8 weeks that we're going to be together. So it's more than enough and more than generous, and I'll be happy to demonstrate that. So how's everybody planning to run? I want to focus on your questions and your what you need addressed this evening. How's everybody planning to run their system?
I have a Windows computer, so I'm going to try and run it through there.
Great.
Ditto. I'll install it and get it set up on the laptop here.
Okay. All right. I have videos on the install of it, and it's perfectly okay. I think you'll notice at this point, if you go looking for it, that there is both a 2014 version of SQL Server Express available, and that's still available, but they have moved on to the 2016 version, and so the package and the install, well, the package is a little bit different. The install is very, very similar. Either of those are fine for this class. So if you decide that you want to do your work in SQL Server 2016, there are not enough substantial differences that it will make any difference for this class. If you want, and this is kind of a good recommendation, if you want everything to look just the way it looks like in all my videos and my material, because I haven't had a chance to update my material yet, then 2014 is still a really good choice for that. So we'll come back to Canvas then. Let me slide that out of the way. And what I have here is I have my SQL Server Management Studio ready to start and to connect. And so I happen to have named my instance CIS 117, and my laptop, my computer happens to be John Laptop 1. And so that's the name of my server. And if I didn't know that, generally speaking, if you've taken all the defaults on the install, if you scroll down and look, it will tell you about all the SQL servers that you've either connected to previously or that it can find. So it should come up, and one of the things that sometimes confuses students, they will find that they may actually have a SQL server already running. There's a lot of different software that installs it, so anything from oh gosh, neat scanners and QuickBooks and other things, depending on what version you're running, may have installed one without telling you about it. And my recommendation is, even though we could, put everything into the same SQL Server, let's create a separate instance, a new one for CIS 117. That way, if we decide to delete it later or remove it or change a configuration, or we are experimenting, we won't hurt anything else that's already running on your system. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try and connect. And I was able to connect there, and I can see that if I open up my database view, I have a number of database schemas that are already here. You will always have system databases, and then if you have installed the scripts, if you run the scripts that create them, you will have the 117DB, the Colonial, Solmaris, and Tal. I don't think I've provided school to you guys. We don't have any exercises using the school database. So if you're looking for another database to play with and you want that, you can always email me. I'll be happy to send you the build script for it. But what we probably ought to do is blow away these and add them back in so we can see the process for doing that, and also a little bit of troubleshooting. So I started out with things working, and that's not really fair. We should probably show what happens when things aren't working. So let's go and sabotage myself. Okay, I have pinned to my start bar the services window, but let me go ahead and show you in the control panel how you would bring up the services window. And it's open on my second monitor, so I'm going to drag it over here so we can see it. And if we take a look at the administrative tools and in computer management, we'll find that there are services and applications. And if I open that up, this little gear symbol, these are the services. And if I take a look down under the S's, I've got them sorted by name alphabetically. You can change the sort order. I'm sorting them by name alphabetically. And if I come down here, I will find all the things related to SQL Server that are running here. So I have a SQL Server instance just called SQL Express. It's currently not running. I have SQL Server 7, CIS 117 that we are using. That is running. Okay, so let me show you a common problem. Often when you install SQL Server Express, because it is like a developer tool, it's something that you wouldn't necessarily run 7x24, because what are you doing with your workstation, your PC, laptop, or your desktop? You're probably not running it as a database all the time. And when you are running it as a database, that eats some resources. So if you don't want to eat the resources when you're not using it, you wouldn't want it to start automatically. Now, the problem with that is that means you may come in and the service may be stopped, okay? So I've got the service stopped. So if we come back over here, let me restart SQL Server Management Studio, okay? So in Windows 10, it's real convenient. I can just start typing SQL and it'll find that SQL Server 2014 Management Studio is installed. The other way I can do that, just for completeness, is if I come over here and I've got all my applications, I can scroll down to Microsoft, the M's, because Microsoft is anything but consistent. So instead of being under SQL Server, it's M for Microsoft, SQL Server 2014, and I scroll down here and I can find the SQL Server Management Studio, and I can start that. So before, when we ran that, it connected quite nicely. Now the service has been stopped. And so if I go to connect, I wait, and I wait, and I wait some more, and this is going to fail because the service isn't running. There's nobody home for it to talk to. And what we have to understand about SQL Server Management Studio, there's the error, and SQL Server, is there's absolutely no reason that these two need to be running on the same machine. This is not your father's or your mom's Microsoft Access. This is a big league database, and you can connect to it remotely. As a matter of fact, if you are interested in building a little home network and experimenting, you could install the database on one machine and connect to it from another machine. The reason I don't demonstrate that is, number one, it's not as much of interest to most of the students. The other thing is we can get into questions of connectivity, network addressing, firewalls, all security, all that kind of stuff. And this is just, this simplifies things. Okay, so bottom line is, if you say can't connect to the database that you know you're installed, before you start pulling your hair out, the first thing to do is go check and see if you have the service running. Okay, so I'm going to bring my services window back over here. And again, I got to that through the control panel. I use it so often, I've actually made a shortcut down here on my taskbar, which you can pin it to the taskbar if you want. And I'm just going to right-click on the SQL Server CIS 117 instance and tell it to start. Okay, I can see it is now running. So I'll go ahead and move my services back out. And now if I go to connect, happiness. Okay. Now, the next thing that you need to know how to do once you've got your SQL Server installed and running is we need to build the databases that we're going to use this term. And so they're not already in there automatically. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to delete these. I'm going to go ahead and drop these databases. So if I right click on this and delete it, it's gone. And let's go ahead and get rid of Colonial at the same time. And the reason that you'll need to know how to do this is not just because you need to set it up once and forget about it, but as you're experimenting, and I encourage you to experiment during this class, you may change some stuff. And rather than trying to figure out how to, undo your changes, it may be easier just to blow the database away and then rebuild it from the script so that you know that you're starting fresh. Especially when you definitely want to do that is before you get ready to sit the final exam, because the final exam has some practicum questions in it. I give you 3 hours and they're not that hard, so you're going to be prepared for them. Don't worry. And you don't need anything like the 3 hours for it, so it should help. But it's open book, open note, open computer. And I want you to have the databases at hand so when you look at a question, you can try it out, or you can use the database to help you to answer that question. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the last one, which is TAL. And then I'm going to slide this out of the way for just a moment. And now let's take a moment to go back and look at our Canvas course shell. So here is Canvas, and Canvas is the online learning management system that we're using. And just to remind everybody, we get to that, the most common way to get through that is through Pipeline. And so when you log into Pipeline, so I'm already logged into Pipeline, if you look at the top, there is a Canvas link, and you can click on that, and then it will pass you through to your Canvas dashboard. And many of you in this class may only have one class in there. I have several. And so you find the class that you intend to work in. And so for me, that's CIS 117, 6393.9 online March. And I click it. And here, the way that this is organized, I'm just going to slide our video out of my way for a minute. It may still be on your screen. You can arrange the video to suit your preference, different than mine, but that was right in the middle of what I'm looking at. Okay, so each of these modules, once you're kind of done with them, you can change the twisty, so you don't have to scroll quite so far to get things. But there is a welcome, and there's a do this first, which has a little bit of documentation on figuring out what I'm talking about tonight. Is how are you going to use your SQL Server? Are you going to do it in the Amazon cloud? Are you going to install it? Are you going to go to the BC lab to use it? If you want to use the cloud, Amazon, there's where you get you can apply for your grant and all that kind of good stuff. But I'm going to scroll down because I'm looking for some of the course resources, and I need the database build scripts. Okay, so I'm going to come over to the database build scripts. These are the SQL commands that are used to create the database and to insert the data. And when we talk about SQL commands that are used to manipulate data, they're data manipulation or DML commands. When we're talking about creating a database or defining the data, that's a DDL, data definition language. And there's a couple of other of those acronyms, and we'll find those in our reading along the way. Okay, so I have a create CIS 117, create HCIT. I don't think we'll be working with HCIT. Oh yeah, this term we're using the HCIT data set, so we're going to be using that one a lot. The Colonial, Syllabus, and TAL. And what I think probably makes the most sense, let's find those a home. Where are we going to put those on our local machine? So I'm going to come over and, maybe I'll go to my documents area and let's see. I don't already have in my documents a folder called CIS-117. So I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it CIS-117. Okay, so now I've got someplace in my documents to put that, and I'm just going to go ahead and download each of these. So get the 117, and let's go ahead and download it. And I'm going to save it as, and depending on what browser you're using, it may just automatically save it to downloads, and then you can move it from the downloads folder over to where you want it. I'm using Internet Explorer, so it gives me the option to save as, and I'm going to take that and put it back over in Documents, CIS 117, and I'm just going to drop it right there. You could even, if you wanted to, you could create a little folder called SQL Scripts. Maybe that would be a good place to keep things organized, because you might use that same folder structure for all of your assignments this term. So there's the 117 database, and let's take a look and download the HCIT database. That one's a little bit bigger. It takes a little longer to build when we run it. And go ahead and save as. It happens to remember the last place I downloaded to, so I'll go ahead and save it there as well. All right, and we would do the same with the others. Let's do one more, because I like to work with TAL. So let's go back and let me grab the TAL database. All right, so I'm done with that. I'm gonna go back to my Canvas core shell, park it on the home page, so when we come back later in this lecture, we'll be in the right spot. And I'm gonna slide that back out of the way. And back to my SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is build one of those databases that we're going to work with. Let's go ahead and build TAL. And to do that, I can go ahead and open a file. And it happens to remember where I put those scripts. Actually, that's I was working with this earlier. Let's go look at the place where we just put them. So over in Documents, CIS 117, SQL scripts. Okay, so here's my TAL script. So I've got, if you happen to be using the AWS system, I've got the scripts cached out there, but I haven't updated them yet. For everybody else who's downloading and running SQL Server locally, I've modified the scripts that you're going to download here so that they actually select the database, drop it if it exists, and then it reloads it. So that's kind of convenient, so it'll refresh it. You don't have to remember to delete the databases like I just did. And it will also make sure that when it creates the tables, it will already be in the database schema. So TAL tables will get created in TAL. You don't have to remember to tell it to use that schema. And that's covered more in more detail in the videos and whatnot. But let's go ahead and run this. And so it's executing, and I look at the messages here because it doesn't have a results screen so much as just the messages. And if I scroll down, I want to see that there were no errors. As I scroll down, I see one row affected. But if you look right now, it may be a little bit alarming to you because you're saying, well, wait, we just built the TAL database, but I don't see it here. And that's because you have to manually refresh this before it will show it. So if we come over here and right click it and tell it to refresh, there indeed is the TAL database and all the TAL tables. And if we were to pick one, I can right click it and say, hey, show me the top 1,000 rows. It really doesn't have anything like 1,000 rows in it, but that's okay. Up to the top 1,000 rows. And I can move the splitter bar and I see there's my data set. So everything is working and happy and ready to go. And I'm now ready to do exercises that require me to use the TAL data set. Any questions so far? Okay. The questions will come later when you actually get hands-on on trying to install and configure stuff, and that's okay. That's why I make the video recordings and there's helps. The other things that you should know is you can post in the course. I check this pretty often. There is in the course resources a course Q&A, get help and give help. And that's not just for getting help, although it's a great place to ask for help, but you can also offer help to your fellow students. And so I try and stay right on top of this, but sometimes somebody beats me to it, and that's great. So if we get a little peer support, that's wonderful. The other thing you can always do is you can email me. I would recommend generally, if it's a question that the answer to which would benefit everybody, put it here. If it's a private thing having to do with grades or personal issues or something, then email me for privacy. And the other thing is, if you're really, really desperate, you know, or lonely, call me. My telephone number is at Santa Barbara City College is hacked. It's hacked to my Google Voice line, so it will forward during the hours 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. So, you know, instructors are usually in their little cubby in their office only, you know, 5 or 6 hours a week, and so it can be really hard to connect with them. And I want to be, especially as an online instructor, I want to be more available to you. So, you know, you call any hour, and it will. It doesn't have to be within those hours, but it'll only ring my cell phone. It'll hunt me down like a dog, and ring my cell phone during other hours. You know, or during those hours. And if I can't answer the phone immediately, leave a message, let me know how to reach you and when a good time to call you back is, and I will get back to you as promptly as I can. Usually I'm pretty prompt. The other thing is, for your awareness, is outside of that time, those times, so if you call, you know, after 8 in the evening, or you call on a weekend or something, it will make a voice transcript of your message and it will text me. And you know, here's the difference. If the student thinks it's an emergency, I may not call them back till the next business day. If I think it's an emergency, I will call you back, even if it is 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday morning, if I happen to roll over in my sleep and notice that a text came in on my phone and whatnot. So oftentimes students and instructors have different ideas of what constitutes an emergency. The best one was 2 terms ago, was Sunday, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 a.m. And it was somebody who was very anxious about their grade, and they had just turned in the assignment that was, you know, was late, and would I consider it, and had I graded it yet? Which I thought was amazing, because yeah, even instructors do sleep occasionally. So I sleep when you guys do, during my lectures, of course, right? Okay, so that's a good introduction for the you know, install on your own Windows machine SQL stuff. Other things I want to show you as resources for that is, of course, there's the help here. You can ask for help, but also I've anticipated some of the more common things that happen, and I will add to this during the term as somebody comes up with a new one. As we solve problems, I will make a little short video tutorial of, hey, this happened and this is how we solved the problem and this is what it looked like, and I will post it here. So common one that's come up is troubleshooting the SQL Server connection. Basically shows what I just reiterated about remembering to get the service running. Another one is troubleshooting IP address access restrictions in the AWS AMI security groups. Sounds really kind of complicated. It's actually not, and it's also not a problem that you're likely to see. I've seen it, I think, once in the last 3 terms that I've taught this this course, but there you go. We solved it once, so we put it in there, so it's in our repository. All right. Other questions? Any aspect of the course or anything about the SQL Server stuff so far? Okay, great. All right, well, let's take a break from SQL Server just for a couple minutes and look over how the course is organized and how we can game the system to get an A in the class, because that's what everybody wants to know how to do, right? And so let's take a look at how things are organized. Okay, so here's our welcome. There's a little background. Can I succeed in this course? The answer basically is yes, and what this basically tells you is bring work ethic, ask questions, you're going to be fine. The AWS grant we talked about. This goes through a lot of the decision tree that we've just talked about this evening about how am I going to use my SQL Server? Can I install it on a Windows machine locally? Or if I have a Macintosh that is running Boot Camp or Parallels so that I can run Windows on it as well, I can install it there. Or alternatively, I go down to the BC Labs, or we use the Amazon Cloud. That would be another good option. Okay. Then our first week, and this is hopefully due by March 12th, but these actually are not graded. That one says 10 points. That's actually, I think, an error. Well, it's a practice quiz. So it's a 10-point practice quiz, but it's 10 points that don't go in the grade book. And the whole purpose of this is if you're brand new to Canvas, or maybe you've never taken an online class before there are points on the line, I want to make sure you know how to make a discussion post, because I have graded discussions. I want you to know how to upload an assignment successfully, and I want you to know how to take a quiz online. And so now, before there's pressure behind it and real points, you do each of those. The other thing that I look at is this date is before the drop with refund. Doesn't really apply so much for this class, because I think most of the cohort here is part of the HCIT cohort. But in the regular class, I want to make sure that if people thought they wanted to take it and they find time, they don't have time to show up. If they haven't done any of these, I can reach out to them the weekend before the drop with refund date and say, hey, let me know if you don't want me to drop you. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and drop you so you get your money back, and let's try this again next term, kind of thing. Okay, so that's kind of why they're there, is basically, are you really there? And before there's a lot of stress and points on the line, do you know how to do all this stuff? You get to practice it first. Course resources. The course Q&A we talked about, the files that we'll need this term to build this. I've also pre-published a final exam study guide to help you guys get the A. We also are a Microsoft, they now call it, I think, the Imagine Academy. It used to be DreamSpark. We're a Microsoft partner, and as a regularly enrolled SBCC student, you can get a ton of Microsoft commercial software for personal use, non-commercial use, for free, including if anybody's building a Windows PC and doesn't want to have to shell out 80 or $100 for a copy of Windows 10, you get it for free for being a SBCC CIS student. So check that out when you get a chance, and download before the term is over anything that might be useful. There are also, I will mention, the full retail version of SQL Server. If you wanted to download it, my recommendation truly is stick with SQL Server Express for this class on your PC, because if you run the full-blown enterprise scale SQL Server, it eats a lot of resources, and you're going to notice your machine running slower. It's not really going to buy you anything for this class, so bragging rights, I guess. You know, it's out there, but I wouldn't use it for, you know, on your regular workaday machine. If you have a spare machine and want to set up a SQL Server to play with, hey, have at it, and that's what it's there for. Okay, troubleshooting resources. Now let's get down to the extra credit. There are 100 points in this class, so every point is that's 1%. A point is a percent of the class, and you're like, wow, 100, that could be pretty harsh if I miss a couple points. Pretty quickly, I'm you know, right at a grade break, and how do I make up those points? There's a half grade level in this extra credit. There's 5 points out here, and there's 2 options, and they're things that I think are a lot of fun and very worthwhile, but they're beyond what we're going to be able to cover in depth this term. So it's my way, my sneaky way of paying you to do a little bit of extra studying. One of them has to do with geo-indexing, spatial indexing a database to make Google Maps, which is a fun thing to do. You can do queries on how far away is something. You ever wonder how that works? How does it know how far away, you know, you are from your favorite Starbucks? And so you get to explore that. The other one talks about something we also won't cover in detail in this short course, and that is the database design and normalization. What goes into designing a properly designed and optimized database, and that will lead you through that. So 5 points for either one of those. Those are due by the close of the final exam. So you have all term. You might want to start looking at them now. It's going to be, you know, probably 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks before you start to get enough background to go, okay, I really know what we're talking about here, and yeah, I'm excited about doing that. So, but go ahead and look those over. Let's take a look at our weeks and see generally how things go. So a typical week layout is I'll have you know, just a very, very short, what are the learning objectives for the week. So you click on it, and there's only, like, you know, a couple things there. It says this week, these are the learning objectives that we're trying to address. So use the select, insert, update, and delete statements, and learn about maintaining data integrity. So that's kind of just a focus point on what are we trying to do this week. Wait for it to refresh here. There we go. Okay, then we typically will have the publisher's slides, and those are to augment, supplement your reading, and so you're welcome to use those. Then we'll have a set of my lecture notes. Oh boy, more reading, like you didn't have enough from the textbook. So those are there if you care. It's a different take, sort of a condensed take on what you should be getting out of the studies for that week. And then I have done a lot of these live lectures, and I'm happy to do more if there's interest for them. And so I've taken sort of the best of the best. And what I have done is I've written a set of exercises that we use for our graded work that are parallel to the widely published and thoroughly discussed on the internet solutions exercises from the textbook. And so you can look at these videos, and I walk through solving the book problem that is very similar to the problem I've assigned you for credit. And so it can be, you know, watch this and then go ahead and pause the video and work on it yourself, the version that I've written for you. And it can be a really effective way to kind of scaffold your learning. And even if you like to learn at 2 in the morning, you've got something that gives you a visual and audio record of how to do that. Then we'll have typically 3 graded discussions each week. One is not even a discussion. I call it a doodle because it's something for you to do. And it is a very simple, you know, see how this SQL is done, now you do one. And you get points for it. And then there is a unquiz. Those are all your key terms and vocabulary kind of chapter review type questions. Okay, and what my intent there is if everybody answers one, then by the time that everybody's knocked one out and gotten their point for it, you also have a really nice study guide for that whole unit. So my recommendation is remember those are there, since the class is the quizzes are open book, open note, and open computer. You don't have to download them. You may want to download them, print them out, or organize them differently. And you've got a study guide for the test. And then I have something I call a C1, B1, T1. And we're going to use, I recommend using this Zoom product that you're viewing right now. You guys can make short videos. And what I ask everybody to do, it's pretty free form, is you come in and you think about what you did this week or what you learned this week, and pick one really small, simple thing, okay, that you can explain in 1 to 3 minutes, and make a video. Share out your screen. You're welcome whether you decide to show your face on screen or not. That's entirely up to you. I encourage you to do so. And we all make a 1-minute video. Any topic that we covered this week or anything that you learned this week, and sometimes your curiosity leads you to learn something that wasn't assigned, but hey, this is this really neat value-added thing I want to share with the class. And it's actually a lot of fun. It scares a lot of people at first. It's actually pretty easy to do. You know, you never learn so well as when you are the teacher. And so when you have to think about, you know, what have I learned this week? Okay, right away, that's part of the process. And then you pick one thing, and now you say, how do I articulate that? How do I show somebody else how to do that thing? So this has been actually a pretty popular feature of the class, and an easy way really to get another point. Okay, so those are our discussions, and then the other things we will have in some weeks but not others are the quizzes, but every week we'll have an assignment. And if you're seeing a few things here that are not going to be on your screen, so this is grayed out. Notice I have 2 sets of instructions for assignment 1. They use different data sets. I alternate what terms I use them in. We're using a little smiley face, the HCIT data set this term, and so you won't see that. But these are your instructions for assignment 1, and then this is the drop box where you will submit that. And to access an assignment, just click on the link, and then the instructions either will be, if they're short enough, they'll just be displayed. You can get a preview here. Most of them are can be previewed, and you can download them. Typically, you will download to view the instructions, and it'll walk you through. All right, so that's our Canvas course shell. Let's take a look now. Well, let me pause again. Any questions? Anything that stirred in anybody that you want to know about, or has come up that you've been thinking about while I've been gabbing? Okay, so I'm not seeing questions. And remember, you can always post to the Q&A, and I'll respond there. And I can even respond. I can even post a little video link if it's something that's better to see demonstrated. And I'm more than happy to do that throughout the week. Okay. All right. So let's take a look then at what the Amazon Web Services cloud would look like running SQL Server. And let's see here. Where have I got that? Yep. So I have already logged on to the Amazon Web Services console. Let me log out and show you what that would look like. So I'll just go ahead and sign out. And so if you go ahead and I recommend, you know, what the heck, it doesn't cost you anything. Even if you're not planning to use it, go ahead and get your AWS student grant, apply for it using your pipeline email account. As I said, they usually grant it within 24 to 48 hours, then you'll have it to play with. You come into aws.amazon.com once you've gotten your grant, and they'll give you help you set up your account. Then you come sign into the console. And the thing that can be a little bit overwhelming is that if you take a look at the Amazon, the console home, and all the services that are available here, I mean, there's a ton of enterprise computing. Remember, this is the same company that runs Netflix. They run our Canvas LMS, or they host it. You know, they have unbelievable computing resources. It can be a little bit overwhelming. I'm looking for something called EC2, so elastic cloud computing, and I'm going to come over here and take a look at the instances that I have running. I've already got one started, and because it can take a couple minutes, I'd started it before the lecture this evening. And ordinarily, you would want to leave them stopped when you're not running it. So the taxi meter is running. You know, every hour, a few pennies come out of my account to keep this running. So if you want to save your pennies, and everybody does, you would stop it when you're not using it. But I've got this one running, and so this is a Windows server running SQL Server in the cloud for our class. It's all ready to go, and the instance name is SBCC-CIS117. And I'll show you shortly how to find and copy that instance if you want it. But make a note of that, because here, I'll bring it up on Notepad, because by default that is also the administrator password for your first instance when you spin it up. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note of that. And what I'm going to do here is I've selected the instance and I want to connect to it now. And so I'm going to tell it to download and the remote desktop file. And this works very similarly whether you're running a Mac or whether you're running a Windows PC, or if you run the a Chromebook with the remote desktop protocol client. Works the same way. If I go ahead and open that, and I'll say, yep, I trust the unknown publisher because it's me, and I'm going to connect to it. And the one thing that's a little bit tricky, and this again is covered in the videos, I don't want to log on to it with the administrator account from my laptop machine. I want to use a different account. It's just going to be the plain Jane administrator. And then what did I use for the password? Oh yeah, same as the instance name. I'm just going to copy that and drop it into the password and say, okay. And yes, I trust it. And now, even though this looks like it is my computer, notice I got the special blue handlebar there. This is actually now a machine running somewhere in Oregon in the Amazon cloud. And I can come in here and open up SQL Server. And let's go ahead, and haven't used you in a while, so let's go ahead and recover those files. And let's connect. And if we look at our databases, they're already installed for us there. So the scripts are also in the documents folder if I need to reinstall it or rerun those scripts to refresh my database. But this is all ready to go and turnkey, and that'll work from a Mac or a Chromebook, or it's kind of amusing to do it from an Android phone, although the screen is really kind of small, but it will all work. And we're now running a system in the cloud, and we can come over here, and there's our HCIT database, there's our tables, and I can very easily grab the top 1,000 rows, and it's pretty snappy. Actually, for a pretty tiny machine, I built it as economically as possible, so it doesn't cost a lot of your AWS grant funds to use it. And you can use this for your work this term if it, for any reason, you can't run it on your local machine. The other thing is, even if you're running it on your local machine, but let's say you have a desktop, and let's say you sometimes want to work from the office or from some other location, the cloud is with you wherever you have internet connection. So it makes it really, really portable. If you've got a laptop, maybe that's not a big distinction, but if you're otherwise having to be housebound or drag around your whole home PC, your desktop computer, that may not be such a great thing. Okay. Then once we're all done with our work here, what we should do is come over and shut the instance down. And when we do that, it will also shut the instance down running as it's reflected in the Amazon Web Services, so it'll stop that taxi meter from running, so it's not billing us. And it takes a couple minutes before you will see it come completely to a stop. You see that I refresh the screen, and now it is stopping. Okay. So, but where did you get a copy of my instance to begin with? You can come over to under the EC2 dashboard, AMIs or Amazon Machine Images. If we come here, these are all mine. You won't have any to begin with. And so instead of looking at mine, let's see if I can look at public images. So these are public images. And I also, since Mr. Beck's images are all in the Oregon region, so US West, make sure that you're searching US West or you may not find my stuff. But if you simply come in here and say, I want to find AMI names that start with SBCC, there's all my images, and they're named by the class that they're used for. And so what you would do the very, very first time you're ready to spin this up in order to get it into to being one of your images is you would click on it and then come to Actions and say Launch. And when you go to launch it, it's going to start asking you questions about how big a machine do you want that to be created as. Just go ahead and take all the defaults here. If you just go right to Review and Launch, all the defaults are set correctly for this machine. And then you go ahead and launch. And once you've launched it once that way, you never have to launch it that way again. Forever after, it's going to be back in your EC2 images. So if we go back to the EC2 dashboard, you would then find it under your instances. So you could go here, there's 0 running instances, or either one of these links will take you to the list of instances. And then all you have to do when you're ready is select the one you want. And of course, you probably will only have the one, at least initially. So you'd click on it and you would change the actions to change the instance state to start. Now, I do want to take a moment and mention the other options here. When you are, if you don't stop it by shutting the machine down, you want to come here and tell it stop. That will do the same thing as telling your computer to power down. If you manage to, and I haven't had a student do it yet, but if you manage to hang up your Windows system and it's not responding to you, then you want to come here and reboot it. The thing that you generally do not want to do is terminate, because this is not terminate like just power it down. This is terminate in the Arnold Schwarzenegger sense of terminate. You terminate it and it's terminated, it's gone. It wipes out the hard disk, it returns all the resources back to the Amazon cloud. Now, you could always make a new copy, but the sad thing is if you had a lot of your work stored on that instance and you've just wiped it out, you might regret that. So please be very, very careful with terminate. Generally, we don't want to do that until maybe the very end of the term, after you've gotten your final grade, and you've said, hey, you know what, they're charging me a few pennies against my precious $75 free grant money every month to keep that 40 gigabyte hard disk on, just stored out there. I want to, save that money. Go ahead and terminate the instance, and then you can use that savings to do other things you might want to experiment with in the cloud. And I commend you. I commend that experimentation to you, and it's worth doing. Learning cloud and being able to put cloud on your portfolio is a very worthwhile thing today. So there you are. And again, my recommendation is whether you plan to use the grant or not, or whether you plan to use your home machine, go ahead and apply for the AWS grant now. Even if you never use it, it doesn't cost you anything. So I think that's a worthwhile thing to do. So, all right. Well, we got about 5 minutes left, and I want to respect your time and end on time. But that's all I got. Any questions for me? Anything else you'd like to know about the course, or how to succeed in the course, the extra credit, how I grade, anything like that?
I don't really have any questions at the moment. I'm still exploring some things. I downloaded some stuff on there. I just need to set things up at this point. That'll probably happen tomorrow. I should have the rest by Sunday, and I'll probably try and start fiddling with some of the week. I did have a question. I'm a little confused about the reading assignment. Are we starting in chapter 3, or are we just
We are.
covering?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and that's a great question. Let me bring the syllabus up for you, and let's see, did I actually close Canvas? Here it is. Okay, so I should have also showed you there is the syllabus, including the print syllabus. And so one of the things that's really nice is it has a syllabus, sort of an events view, which is all the due dates and things coming up, and you can link directly to what's coming up there. That's a nice feature of Canvas. But the March 2017 print syllabus is here. And if we bring that up and open it in Word, it will show us what the reading assignments are. All my contact information, my in-office office hours, my bio, if you need to get to sleep, read that. Here's the required textbook. Shelley, did you receive a copy of the textbook from the grant manager?
Yeah,
Great.
I have it.
That makes me so happy. I was very worried about whether people would have the textbook. So we're using A Guide to SQL by Pratt and Last. It's a pretty conversational book. I like it pretty well. And then if you scroll down into the course schedule, we do start with chapter 3. That doesn't mean you shouldn't read the preface or chapters 1 and 2. It just means that this is a short course. And so it's a highly practical course. It really fits in the mission of, community colleges have sort of a dual mission of, we prepare people for transfer to 4-year degrees, but we also serve the career and technical education community. And this is really a CTE kind of class. It does transfer if you need elective credit for your 4-year degree. It is articulated. It's a regular accredited, university level class. But the genius of it is that it is really, really useful, and it ignores some of the very worthwhile but non-essential things for the person who's learning, beginning and intermediate SQL. We work right on writing SQL and debugging SQL and making very useful queries. So, the chapter 1 and 2, by all means read it, but especially, a lot of people have gotten a little bit of a crazy start in this class because our registration program, our process was a little bit confusing and not as smooth for the students as we would have liked it to be. So maybe, start in on chapter 3, go back and skim chapter 1 and 2 if you need the background to understand what's going on in chapter 3, but really you can start in on chapter 3. So we're going to read chapter 3. Weeks 2 and 3, we're going to split up chapter 4. So we do pages 97 to 111 the first in week 2, and 112 to 131 in week 4. Then we get into chapter 5. Week 5 we do chapter 6. Week 6 we do chapter 7. Week 7 we do chapter 8. And boy, the time just passes so quick. Week 8 we don't have time for additional reading. We're doing our final exam and hopefully putting the final touches on your extra credit to put a few extra points in the bank. And it's fun. Everybody that has done the GIS, the spatial indexing, likes it. And what they tend to like best about it is they find the best chocolate shop in Santa Barbara City College, because I use near Santa Barbara City College, because I use Chocolate Maya as a coordinate, a sample coordinate. And if you have never had their salted caramel, just don't blame me if you have to join a 12-step program afterwards. It's not my fault. It should be a class 2 controlled substance, but their salted caramels are just really that good. Almost worth cutting class for, but not my class. All right, well, that's our time. If you don't have anything more for me now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'll end the recording, and if you have any off-recording comments or questions you want to ask, you'll have a moment to do that. And I'll go ahead and post this up in the next few minutes, and that way our classmates that weren't interested or weren't able to join us tonight will hopefully have the benefit of the recording, and hopefully it'll be useful to them. So we'll go ahead and stop the recording now. Thanks.